every time he turns around, I kind of get that feeling, oh no, he's gonna get me next.
But yet you're fascinated by him.
Very, very. Every night when I go to bed, I just, I get very scared. I shut my door and lock him.
I'm not afraid of him. He just doesn't look like the type to kill somebody. You try to imagine yourself in his place and to see how he's feeling looking at the pillow, if he really did it or not.
Is this guy a hero, or is he a terrible monster? This guy's name is Steve Sanderson. He's a guy who's currently serving a life in prison sentence for the 1991 murder of his girlfriend. And in 2015, he just happened to get a new cellmate, a man named Theodore Dyer. Now, this guy was sentenced to prison because he did unspeakable things with a 9-year-old girl. And he was trying to hide that fact from the other prisoners. But being his new cellmate, Steven found out right away what Theodore Dyer was in prison for. And while they were alone in their cell together, this guy was trying to explain his situation, saying he was framed. Steven told him to be quiet, and the next day he would have to find a new cell. Well, the guy kept talking, and Steven had just about enough. So Steven punched him in the face a few times, took off his shoelaces, and then strangled him and ended his life. The court gave him one more life sentence, but it wouldn't have mattered because he already had a life sentence. While in court, Steven said about Theodore Dyer, "I didn't judge him. The only judge is God. I just set up the appointment."
Did you guys know that Brittany Drexler's body has been found after 13 years? On April 25th, 2009, 17-year-old Brittany Drexel went missing while visiting Myrtle Beach for spring break with some friends. Brittany lived in New York, and her mother didn't give her permission to travel to Myrtle Beach because she feared something would happen to her. But Brittany went anyway. Later that day, on the 25th, Brittany walked to her friend's hotel that was a few miles away, but as she made her way back, she suddenly disappeared. The last message that she sent to her boyfriend John, who was in New York, was at 8:58 p.m. and when she stopped responding, he contacted Brittany's mother. 62-year-old sex offender Raymond Moody became a person of interest, but he was never charged until now. It wasn't until recently that detectives developed information they needed to make an arrest, and that's when he finally confessed and led investigators to the woods where he buried Brittany. 13 years later, on May 11th, 2022, Brittany's remains were found in a wooded area in Georgetown, South Carolina. Raymond kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered Brittany the same day she went missing. He is now eligible for the death sentence, and he was charged with murder, kidnapping, and criminal sexual misconduct.
Is there a horror movie that freaked you out so bad you haven't seen it again?
I love being scared. Sinister is definitely the scariest horror movie I've seen, and I'll watch it to death. But this movie right here, it's a one-time watch.
This is Worst Deaths Imaginable number 66. Viewer discretion is advised. This was 50-year-old father Ravi Subramanian, and he lived in Mumbai. Ravi was a superintendent chief engineer for Air India working at the Mumbai airport. On December 15th, 2015, at approximately 8:46 p.m., one of the planes was getting ready to taxi out. There was unfortunately a major communication issue going on though when this was happening. The flight was running about an hour late, so they were in this hurried process. Ravi and a couple of his crew members were still pretty close to the plane, and they were not expecting it to start running the engines. But they did. The engines fired up, and Ravi and his other engineers, well, they heard it happening. They were trying to wave and communicate to the pilots, but no one saw. A couple of the engineers managed to get away, but Ravi, he was not able to. And I remember growing up, for some reason, this used to be such a humongous fear of mine, even though I was never around planes. The suction of the engine, it's incredibly strong. And Ravi, unfortunately, as he was trying to run away, he did not win the fight. The powerful force of the engine essentially took Ravi and it sucked him inside of the engine. At that point, his death obviously was instantaneous. They described it as his body parts essentially just shot out like a blender without a lid on. His head was like completely shredded, and they had to collect body parts from around the runway. inside the engine. I've seen a picture of it. It's not entirely graphic because it just shows blood, but the entire inside was just painted with blood. Once they collected all of the body parts, they were able to do a post-mortem. I don't know why they needed to do an autopsy, but they did. The autopsy said he died of unnatural reasons. Yeah, no, I'd say that's pretty accurate. His family was obviously devastated, but they did receive his body and were able to bury him. Now, I can see that the 2 pilots of the plane were charged with a form of negligent homicide, and it looks like a lawsuit was also filed, but usually I can never find the results of these, and this is also, unfortunately, one of those situations. So people were being held responsible, I just don't know the outcome. Rest in peace, Ravi.
This is the story of Junko Furuchira, right? This happened in 1989, I think.
Yeah.
She was a high schooler, right? And in her school, she was considered very, very pretty.
Yeah.
And then a lot of girls were jealous of her in that school. And there's this one delinquent in that school who's always like, I'm top shit. And he's telling everyone like, you can't fuck with me because I'm part of the Yakuza.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So one day, that girl, who's like probably the prettiest girl in that school, they crossed paths, right? And the guy's like, I bet I'm gonna shoot my shot real quick.
Yeah.
Right? Boom, shoots his shot. The girl's like, nah, I'm not messing with you. Like, get away from me. The guy's like, nah, you don't reject me. Like, I'm part of the Yakuza. Like,
part of the gang,
you don't do that shit to me. So I think on the same day, 3 and his boys kidnapped that girl.
Oh shit.
Took her back to his home. He told the girl, get on your phone now and tell your mom that you're with your friends. Right? They kidnapped her for 44 days straight.
Damn.
And the things they did to her
Is this a true story?
This is a true story. This happened in 1989, I think. Right? The whole time, the 44 days, they were torturing her. Like I'm gonna blur this out, but like they kidnapped her for 44 days straight.
Damn. Is this a true story?
This is a true story. This happened in 1989, I think. Whole time, the 44 days, they were torturing her. Like I'm gonna blur this out, but like they
Wait, like, there's a movie on this actually.
Oh, that ass?
There's a movie on this.
I think it was estimated that during these 44 days, it wasn't just those 3 guys that tortured her.
Yeah, Denzel told me all the. Oh my.
Yeah,
God.
it was at least 100 Yakuza members who came and helped torture.
Yeah.
You feel me? And I think what happened was one day she caught them slipping, got the phone, tried to call the police. One of the guys saw, slapped the phone out of her hand.
Yeah.
And then he was mad, right?
Yeah.
So I think they took lighter fluid and
they burned her alive
and burnt parts of her body.
Oh
right?
shit.
The crazy thing is she survived that.
No way.
Yeah. And then I think a couple days went on. They were playing a game. The girl beat the guys at the game, and then they're like, they're even more mad. They're like, what the fuck? So they